From a wellness perspective, our current culture, viewed as a laboratory experiment, is an ever more globalised demonstration of what can go awry. Amid spectacular economic, technological, and medical resources, it induces countless humans to suffer illness born of stress, ignorance, inequality, environmental degradation, climate change, poverty, and social isolation. It allows millions to die prematurely of diseases we know how to prevent or of deprivations we have more than enough resources to eliminate. This is quoted by Gaber Mate in The Myth of Normal. The old House of Fraser building on Oxford Street is a spectacularly vast space that can be set up to hold anything, so we first started off this Thesis project as a group with a manifesto that we would tackle collectively as a starting point. We shouldn't take this toxic society for granted and accept suffering and the disintegration of our communities as the new normal. This project will reflect our resolve to put forth a healthier option that will generously enhance the public life of this dynamic metropolis. What might a failed, outdated department store serve as a remedy for the toxic environment we found ourselves in? As part of a new radical concept, the location will be one of the key stops of a new cable car service that connects Marble Arch in the west and St. Paul's in the east. The route will also be a component of network of public elevated gardens that will create an archipelago-like landscape that floats over the busy streets below. The foundations of the new typology will be encoded in an early formal game using an architectural primitive, which will then be animated and further expanded by a rich mix of program material. Instead of relying on the current grid, we carefully examined energy use, starting with the site completely dark, then intelligently providing light where it was required, creating a form of architectural chiaroscuro. The current facade will be kept, but concealed by an outside insulating wrap, a price worth paying for the energy efficiency. The addition of the primitive, a 30 by 18 metre box, made by just using the Boolean tool and Rhino to carve voids, improves the site. I 3D printed the primitive to a 1 to 200 scale in order to better understand this phase and how to apply it to my own thesis project. I decided to position each layer of the design in accordance with the summer and winter solstice, as I developed the design of my primitive through model making, just as the Berlin State Library, designed by Hans Scharoun and Edgar Wisniewski, is depicted in the film's Wings of Desire. My choice to do this was motivated by the idea that we can never know what life has in store for us. This movie addresses emotions in a densely populated city with inhabitants who feel lonely and distressed, and how a building with a simple structural adjustment in the axes might help ease that. This will therefore serve as a calming gesture to the bustle of women in politics by shifting the axes of the primitive. I initially started looking at the origins and rules of exclusivity and inclusion within private members' clubs in London. As I researched this subject, I concluded that although these clubs originally catered only to men, they have just recently begun to be more open to members of all genders. However, the concept of a women's-only members' club does not appear to be particularly well liked. The disused department store now comes into focus as a place for women alone, but I was more interested in using it as a haven for women's politics organisations, such as Women's Equality Party, Elect Her, and many more. A space within my programme that I decided to develop further to help my understanding on the ways in which spaces can make a person feel powerful is the recreation of a House of Commons Parliament-style debate hall. Looking at different spaces of power and politics across the world, I began to model what this space could look like at a 1 to 20 scale. Through building this model, I began to realise how big and powerful an auditorium or debate hall could feel. Another aspect of my proposal was to clear the ground floor, creating a vaulted open space for the public to walk through, with the debate hall being in the centre, a space people can wander through and become curious. I also modelled these at 1 to 20 scale too, first using laser cut grey card and plaster, then experimenting with acrylic to allow recessed floor lights under the vaults to light the space as a way of starting from darkness, a point mentioned in our manifesto. The roof structure, a draped and organically shaped structure suspended from the ceiling, would be the building's final feature. Gaudi used form-finding experiments to design La Sagrada Familia as a technique to understand shapes and forms. My proposed structure was formed by investigating tensile structures, modelling it with tights that stretch to create peaks and troughs, and using calculus formulae to create different 3D graphs. The structure will reveal suspended rods that serve as microphones to record the sound of the building, which would then be converted into energy through transformers to partially power the building, making it a sustainable form of energy. Combining this together, we can begin to see that a brave new world is ours, and it's not for sale.